Hello and welcome everyone. Today we will talk about how to benchmark and in every way possible for beginner. What are the tools that you will be needing? What are the options you need to do? What are these options when you hear something like the 1% low, the average FPS, the everything that you need to benchmark a game and see if it's working well on your PC, on your desktop or laptop. Let's start first much the app that we will be needing to benchmark. That's MSI Afterburner. Uh, Easy as you will just search about MSI Afterburner in Google and you will download the app from them. It's nothing crazy. You will just download the app and install it as it said. There will be another app with it, of course. If I enter the app uh, for me, there will be another app with it that will ask you if you want to install it with it. It's this one, Riva Tuner. uh, Install it also with it. It's a regular install. You will just press next for everything, and after you install MSI Afterburner, that's the thing you will be getting. You want to get this interface. I will teach you also how to change the interface, but this is basically what you will be getting when you install the app. You will enter, of course, MSI Afterburner and enter the settings. Here is everything you will be needing to do these tests. This is the most important part for you, is the monitor. Here you will have all the options that you might need to monitor everything in your games, from the temperature, from GPU speed, the CPU power consumption, everything will be here. But before that, if as I said in first, if you want to change the interface, it's just here. There are a lot of options here, but I will stick with this as this is the thing I like. But there are a lot of interfaces that change the look of the app, but that's not what's important here. The most important thing is the monitoring and all these options that you will be using to monitor your every component of your PC, and also the games and the how much FPS you will get. So first we will start with the CPU. The CPU, the first thing you need to know, there are a lot of options here. You will see the CPU 1, 2, 3, and all the logical CPU you have. For me, I have 6 cores, so that's 12 threads. You will monitor every one of them. But for the sake of this video, this is a beginner guide that will show you everything in the beginning. If you are really interested in seeing every core, you can just do this for every core or every logical thread. So for me here, I will just do the temperature for all of the CPU and the usage for all of the CPU. Most people, of course, don't do the temperature for the each CPU, but they do the usage to know how much every piece of the CPU is used. But for the sake of this video, as I said, we will do the only the CPU temperature and also the CPU usage. Uh, as it is, you will just if this thing is not showing up by any mean, you will just like this. You need to activate it, of course, and you just need to show it on screen display. And if you want to change the name here, you will just override the graph name or the group name. Of course, we don't have here graph, just did this, but and you can add this slash n if you know the codage. That's because if you have the same name repeated, the numbers will show in the same line. But if you want them to show every line alone, you will need to do the slash n to make every line alone. As I said, you don't need, of course, this here. but for the CPU temperature you just need to show it, and of course to the group name you will overwrite it to make that for you, and of course if you want to do this too, and you will do the same for everything you will need. If you are, as I said, the beginner, these are the most useful things that you will need: the CPU temperature, of course, and the CPU usage to know how much a game is using your CPU, the CPU clock, you should know how much of the clock speed you are using, the CPU is using to power that, the CPU power, to know how much volts this is using. Of course, the RAM. I mean, everyone knows the RAM. And from here, I will skip this part to go to the GPU because I am not using Optimus in my laptop. I am using a laptop, so I have two GPUs. But for you, if you are using a desktop, you have, of course, it depends if you are having a integrated GPU in your CPU or not. But uh, it will depend in how much GPU, of course, you are using your PC. Even if you have more, it will show more. But as I said, there are two GPUs for me: the one with the CPU, of course, the Radeon, and the RTX that I have in my laptop. So you need to know which one if is the first, it's which one is second. I think if you go to the here, you will have your I don't think you will know it from here, to be honest, because it is supposed to be GPU 0 and GPU 1, but here the GPU 2 for me is the RTX. So just test it, because it will be easy to notice if you are in a game. Of course, the usage of uh, the other Radeon or the Intel, if you have it won't be that high, so you will notice it very easily. But continuing of course with that, and the GPU also will show the GPU temperature and the GPU usage. If you want, there are other things, the memory here for the VRAM, like the RAM, of course. The of course this is not showing, of course, for me. I mean, just the second one. I don't know why it show this, but it didn't show for me. The clock, of course, if you want the speed for the your GPU, there is also the power to know how much it consume. I will just do this really quickly. As I said, the power is in here, it's saving here. If you want to know the fans, the power limit, the voltage, there are other things, but for me, I don't think they are that much important. For the regular use, you will just need these things. And last thing, of course, we will talk about the frames, maybe the most important things in the game. For this, uh, I really advise you for the frame rate and the frame time to show the text in the graph, because it is really important. It is really important for you to show both of these in your test, because they can give you a better look. If the graph is stable, then your frame rate and frame time are stable. And if they are not, and the graph is going up and down, even if your frame rate looks good, it is not, because it will be a little stuttery. So it is best for you to show the text in the graph, and of course name them both. You can do the average. Honestly, I don't do the average, but for the sake of this video, I will just do it. You don't need the graph for here, FPS, EVG, average. As of this, that's all. The last thing, of course, you will need is the 1% law. I know a lot of people don't understand this, because even for me, when I start this whole thing, I didn't understand it very well. So the frame raise 1% low. What is it? So basically, as it said in the name, this thing calculates the worst frame you are getting when you are playing the game. So when you are playing a game, even if you saw in the frames and the average that the frames are high, you are actually getting some low frames in between. But it depends, of course. If these frames are a lot, it can uh, show in the frame 1% low, but it won't show in the average or the frames, of course, because there is some a low percent is a 1%. So you are collecting the worst 1% of these all frames and showing them. So let's say an example that you are playing a game and your average FPS is 70 frames, but if your 1% lows are like 24 FPS, then even if the average is 70, you are getting a bad experience, because the 1% low, or there is a lot of low percentage, low FPS percentage in the calculation for your FPS. So if you have a low 1% low, it is bad. If you have a high 1% low, that's the best thing you can have. For us in the laptops, you mostly won't have it very high, but at least if you don't have it less than 30, then that's good. If it is above 30, mostly you are good, because you won't really notice that much. But if it's below 30, it is really bad, because the game will stutter a lot for you. And that's it for all of the uh, calculation we will need. We'll do a little test, of course, maybe in just a game like Genshin Impact. It doesn't really matter which game you are experiencing this with, but just a free game that you can experience with, and a little bit heavy game, not too much heavy, but it can work in low PCs. But for the sake of this video, we'll just show it. I forgot to show you one other thing, that you will choose the buttons for showing some parts of this MSI Afterburner. There is on screen display, and there is also these benchmarks. This benchmark is the buttons you will need to show the FPS average and the 1% low, because they are not instant calculation, they are an average time calculation. And of course there is this here to show or hide the number, the MSI Afterburner data. You will choose, if this toggle is that, you will press the same button to show and hide. And of course these are different buttons. You can choose one to hide and one to show. And at the end of the video I will give a brief explanation for Revisioner, because it's also very cool to use. It's simple and most people use. I won't show it entirely, I will show what you actually need mostly as a player. But let's get started with the benchmark. If you can just say this, these are the benchmark. Yeah, they are all over the place for me because I'm not using the I'm using the other GPU, which is the Radeon. Normally I deactivate it, but I just want to show it for the sake of the video, to show you that you might have two GPUs. But for here, you can see that there is a lot of calculation here. The first one, of course, is the CPU temperature, the CPU usage, because it's a percentage. As I said, I didn't know them well, but try to give each one a proper name so they don't stack up this like this. This is the waters. This is, of course, the clock, the RAM, the FPS, the frame time, the GPU GPU temperature utilization, and the speed, of course, the memory or the VRAM, and also the voltage for the GPU. And this is basically it. all the calculation you need to monitor a game for the basic stuff. As you can see here, you have the frames and the frame times. You can give mostly a very good uh, example of how the game is running just basically from this. If these, as you can see here, they are mostly stable. Of course you will have an ups and downs, but mostly it is stable. So if you have these ones are not stable and they are going up and down a lot, then your experience is not great. And of course if you start the the option for opening the record, as we said earlier, you can see here we will have the average FPS and the 1% low. They are both, as I said, a calculation over time, so you will need to play a bit uh, in them and play a little bit, of course, of the game to see the real uh, average FPS and the real 1% low. As you can see here, of course, I won't have a much interesting average because this game is stuck at 60 FPS. But if you have another game, it will be a little bit different because as you can see here the game is stuck at 60, so the average of course is 60 fps because it doesn't go lower than that, and the 1% low is 38 frames. It's even better if I play in some other places, but I'm around now recording in everything, so it is muchly really good experience. But as I said, if the 1% low are really lower than 30 fps, it might be a really bad experience that you will really notice just from playing the game. It will be a little bit stutter, but overall that's what you really need. Of course the other part of the monitoring is the temperature. You need to be careful about the temperature. I am here using, of course, a laptop, so the uh, temperature are really high in comparison to other stuff. So if you don't have a laptop, you have a desktop, it really should be really way lower. Like it should be in the 70s or in the 60s, depending, of course, on the how you are cooling your system. But in the laptops, it is what it is. You will be really stuck with some high uh, temperatures. For me, I really did just limit my CPU use, not usage, but the speed of my CPU, because it was a really bad inside the summer or during the summer. Some days it was really hot and my CPU temperature just reached like 100 degrees Celsius. So it was really bad. So I limit my CPU speed to just 3 gigahertz point, of course. Even my CPU can reach 4, but it is for the sake of the temperature, and it doesn't really affect the uh, performance that much. Of course it will affect it in some parts, but it won't affect it that much. And the next part is the utilization. This part won't be relevant in Genshin, as I said, because it is muchly not that much consuming game. But if this part here, the utilization of the, especially the GPU, if we say that the GPU utilization is down, it is not 99%, and you are not limiting the frame rate, and you are getting low frame rate, it is probably a bottleneck in other teams and other opponents of your PC, limiting the performance. So, or it might be just a game that is bad in performance. Sometimes games badly optimized can have that also. So if you have a 99% usage for the GPU, then that's a really great, because you are using all of the power from your GPU, and mostly you are getting the frame rate you're supposed to get. But as I said, if it is lower than that, it might be just because you are limiting the frame rate. So for me, I am limiting the frame rate, so I am getting the 60 fps, and I don't need to use all the GPU power. But it's not I'm limiting it, but the game is limited. But if you are not limiting it, you should get 99% in the usage for your GPU. And if you are not getting that, as I said, it might be from the game and how badly optimized it is, or it might be from another component, from the RAM or the CPU. And of course, the CPU should not hit that much from in games, because it is mostly even lower than this, because I'm recording it's a little bit higher, but it's just in 30s, 40s, sometimes in the 50s. But in some games it might be even more than that, because there are some games that use CPU more than others. So it can be both, but that's really it. In the monitoring, the power is really clear, the utilization for RAM is really clear, the speed you won't really need to care about it that much. So the last thing we will speak about is the Riva tuner. Here you can just go to the Riva tuner, and mostly you can just use it to limit the frame rate, because it's really good. If the game doesn't have a limit frame rate as the limit you want, you can get between 70 and 80 frames in a game, but you want much stable performance, and you want maybe more than 60. That's just an example. You can just limit the frame rate in 70 frames, and you can live with it, and it will be a much better performance. And there's a lot of other different things that you can do here, but they are really not that much useful for the regular gamer that just want to use his things. So that was really it in this video. If you like it, please put a like and subscribe in channel for more guides and other guides in games. And see you in another video.